Hi, this is Mary Ann Clyde,
And this is Lorna McGill.
and we're here with the Isn't She Amazing podcast and another amazing guest, Eileen Isola. Say hi.
Hello. Thank you guys so much for having me. It's just great to be here with you and be part of your community.
We are so excited because you have such an interesting life, have overcome so many obstacles, and had so many victories that started out as challenges. Eileen is a pilot. She was a decorated Air Force combat pilot. She spent all 24 years kind of hiding in plain sight because she might be arrested or she might be imprisoned because she is a gay woman. She also suffered from breast cancer and yet had many unique challenges with that she overcame in a beautiful way. And the fact that she is writing her memoirs now, Lorna and I were fascinated to hear the ups and downs of Eileen's life. So Eileen, welcome. We want to know what it is in you that created this indomitable spirit that you have.
Well, again, just thanks so much for having me on and this opportunity to share some of me and as Isn't She Amazing is all about is and hopefully leave a few takeaways and breadcrumbs that others can pick up on and maybe help them use them in their own life. That's a great question. It's one that I, for a long time, had no answer for because, in the younger days, younger years, we just tend to, at least I did anyway, just kind of put my head down and go forward. And in the context of the years that I was in the Air Force, women, and especially women pilots, we were still quite an exception, a novelty, a lot of work, always trying to belong, fit in, those kind of things. Be one of the guys, and yet you didn't want to be one of the guys. You wanted to be who you were and be a woman and all of that. So it just was a lot of times just put up with and go along and put your head down and keep going forward and just one foot in front of the other. So it wasn't until much, much later, and frankly, in the context of the last several years of writing my book, that I've had to really figure out that question and some of the answers to it, because it's more than one answer, and I suspect for most people it's more than one answer. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to flying, it's not for me the determination to and the fight to get back to the cockpit after breast cancer was just came from I've always known I was going to be a pilot. I never, from the age of 5, when I would sit on the front lawn reading my dad's old Pan Am flight manuals as if I knew what I was looking at, but I just always knew I was going to be a pilot. And it's not a job for me. It's part of who I am. So the fight, there was just it was a soul level who I am, huge part of me that I absolutely needed to get back into flying airplanes. And so there's also this other aspect to me that just through various circumstances and stories that you'll read about in the book when it comes out next year, is just I developed along the way. It's a phrase I have called, that's why God made waivers, meaning there's always a way around, over, under, and particularly if I got myself educated to know as much, if not more, than the person or obstacle that was standing in my way for something I wanted to achieve. I just some of it was sort of like the fun of the hunt of how can I defeat this person? How can I, this bureaucrat or this silly rule or this ridiculous policy that, women were now not allowed to fly in combat. We could be shot at, we could be lit up by radar missiles, but we weren't allowed to be in combat. it was so nonsensical. And that kind of burst in me like how can I outmaneuver this obstacle that's in my way? And then that flowed over in just all kinds of other aspects of my life, which, included the fight to get back to the cockpit, and the efforts to, and I'll say that's sort of the left brain side. On the right brain side is just to figure out who I am, and what when I was at that point, which of course is how we all made the connection of what the heck am I doing? Why am I here? What's my purpose? There's got to be more. Surely 24 years can't be, yeah, I've done my bit for God and country, but there's got to be more. There's got to be other things. Why am I here? And that led to a lot of the hard work on my mind, on my body, and on my soul to figure those things out. And now, having figured that out, which is not an end state being by any stretch of the imagination, it's a constantly evolving, it's life. It's
Right.
something that goes on forever.
Right.
But it now gives me another shot of energy and drive to keep going and to keep plugging on and figuring out, okay, what's the next thing in front of me? Is that a Berlin Wall, or is that just a mouse turd to trip over? And figure that out and keep pressing on and look around for okay, where's the waiver? That's why God made waivers. Where can
I have a question. So you talk a lot about how you overcome and you look at how to solve for this, but sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you're not in a good place.
Oh,
so when you're at that point, how do you forge through? How you're I see that that's going to change, but I feel crappy and I don't feel like I have the energy to get myself out of bed, but I have to change this. What drove you?
So sometimes there is not a drive. You are absolutely right. In the darkest of days, when after the surgery, and it was a botched reconstruction and 6 more surgeries after that, and I literally was left so disabled I couldn't even put on my own socks. That's crazy. I somewhere out of there, as I was sitting on the couch and all I had to do was look out the back door at the birds, and I had jerry-rigged a bird feeder using a colander and a dog bowl, so I could have birds. And out of that came what I have called and have continued to live by of Eileen's rule of 1, meaning just do one thing a day. I had what I called, the term fight or flight. I had fight days, flight days, and what I called DNR days, do not resuscitate. Fight days, flight days, and DNR days. And on those DNR days, and baby, there were a lot of DNR days, it was just do one thing, no matter how seemingly mundane, inane, inconsequential, unworthy, should, put aside the should, just for today, for it's at a, we've heard of the serenity prayer. It's even for me, it's at a depth beyond the serenity prayer. It's at a much more survival level of just do one thing. And if one thing today is literally just walk to the mailbox and get the mail, then that's what I did. I could only do at most one thing a day for a long period. If today was shower and wash my hair day, that was it. There was no cooking food. There was no doing laundry. There was no anything else. So I just did day after day. I just did one thing a day and gave myself the grace to just be okay with it and not beat the ever-loving snot out of myself over it, which was really hard to do. I had to just do that. I just had to get okay with, this is right now. This is it. And I'm okay just doing this one thing. And on the days that I can do more than one thing, that I did more than one thing. And then it became more, that was a physical reality. And since then it has become, in addition to the physical, it's also become the emotional and spiritual side. If all I can do emotionally today, because I just got you know, emotional cement shoes hanging around my neck,
Yeah.
staring at, you know, the Marianas Trench deep water in front of me, then
Mhm.
I just do one thing today to take care of my heart and my soul and my emotional health. And maybe that is literally just, once again, sit on the back deck and enjoy watching the birds, or put on meditation music and just sit quiet for, even if it's just 10 minutes. I don't have to try and have some big
Right.
like I'm
Right.
sitting in an ashram in India or something. But just take that kind of thing and just breathe. And if
Yeah.
that's the one thing I can do today, and I can only do that one thing, and I'm still going to do the 10,000 other physical things I got to do because I got a job and I got kids or grandkids and I got to do,
Mhm.
and my to-do list is this long and all these things I got to do, I can still do that, but I
Yeah.
can take care of myself inside enough to be able to do those things because I'm the mom and the grandma and the woman and the water carrier. Um, but I can still just do one thing. If that's all I can do today, I am good with that. And I have continued to live by that. You know, handles all those up and down days.
Wow, that's give us sort of a timeline of your military service, your cancer saga, which sounds just dreadful, and you know, and where your kids fit into that, and your grandkids, and everything else.
So I actually graduated from the Air Force Academy with one of the early classes that had allowed women in it. Um, and retired out of the Air Force in 2005. And we settled in Winchester, Virginia, where I am now. Um, and 3 kids, 2 daughters. They were my bonus kids. Quite honestly, that's what I call them, my bonus kids. But I was mom. I was as mom as any other mom. They may not have come out of my birth canal, but they are absolutely my kids. Um, and so that was in 2005. 2013 got diagnosed with breast cancer, May 31st, Friday, May 31st at 8:27 in the morning. You never forget the day, the moment
Veered into your mind.
the cancer bomb explodes in your life.
Yeah.
And had the bilateral mastectomy in the middle of August. It was a combination mastectomy and reconstruction. The reconstruction got botched. And over the course of the next 2 years, there was a total of 6 surgeries to try and do what they could do. Ended up with an implant on the left and a reconstruction on the right. The left side reconstruction is the part that failed, and they had to go back in and put an implant in. So I ended up with one of each. So I dubbed them thing 1 and thing 2. And you know, I've just tried along the way. There's some other, in the midst of all of the horrific things that happened in the hospital, there were some funny things, like they had to use medical leeches to try and get the blood to flow. Yeah, who knew, right?
Yeah,
So
right.
the guy walks
Like,
in.
that's a medical practice.
Right. He walks in and he says, well, we'd like to try medical leeches. And I literally, in this critical condition I was in, picked up my head and looked past him to the door. And everybody turned, the whole room all turned and looked. And I said, I was just looking to see if Leonardo da Vinci was coming through the door next. You know, so with the leeches, you know, went on 2 at a time. So, you know, we named them. The first 2 were Bert and Ernie, and the next 2 were Thelma and Louise, and the next 2 were Jacques and Pierre, because they had come from Montreal.
Of course.
You know, so that we just tried to use, you know, where you could, but there was just yeah, tremendous a lot of people, and often you hear cancer referred to as a journey. For me, I say, yeah, it's so not a journey. A journey for me is like discovery and adventure and travel and new places and new things and all that. It's not a journey. It's a shit show inside a dumpster fire riding on a train wreck.
There you go.
And everybody's got it somewhere in their life. We all, unfortunately, these days, we all do. So that fast forward to 2016. And by that point, I was just consumed with scar tissue and adhesions from neck to pelvis and unable to physically function at all. And I ended up moving. I got a call from a friend of mine who asked me to come join his company down in Fort Worth. So with a lot of help from a lot of folks, moved me to Fort Worth. And I was only there 2 years, and that gig ended. But while I was there, I found a phenomenal medical team and a particular doctor who he thought it would be worth trying to take an existing treatment that is used for things like carpal tunnel syndrome and try and apply it to me to see if we could start breaking up some of all this scar tissue and adhesions.
yeah.
Because I had about 30% use at that time of my right shoulder and arm.
Wow.
And so we started in October of 2016. And over the course of, by 6 months later, I had enough functionality in my arm and shoulder and upper part of my torso that I got the crazy idea in my head. And I know it's not a crazy idea. I know this was, whether you want to call it God or the universe or creator, higher power, all of the above, all the gods and goddesses, all the names we want to use, all of the above, brought that into my head, my heart, and my soul, and said, you need to go back to flying airplanes. So I had the crazy thought of, I wonder if I could go back to flying airplanes. And I just turned my life into one of hardcore intention and exquisite focus, and spent the next year plus figuring out how to do that while undergoing all these treatments. Because I had nothing to go back to flying. I had nothing but, 20-year-old Air Force flight records from the days when things were printed on dot matrix printers.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was it. I didn't know anybody. I had no idea what to do. So in the course of, as these treatments went on, I ended up with about 15 months of these treatments, total of 95 treatments. And by the time I moved back to Winchester, I got hired by a company and had the opportunity to relocate to fly out of Washington Dulles. So I did that in the summer, fall of 2018. And at that point, so in the spring of 2018, got hired to fly Boeing 767s all over the world and made it back to the cockpit. And so I spent 5 years doing that with that company. And then the calling of the book, once again, I was, standing in line in an airport in the DFW bathroom and said, what the ever loving bleep am I doing here? And I had been writing, I've written in the cockpit at 35,000 feet. I've written in hotel rooms and airport lounges at 3 a.m. and you name it. And it just, once again, this persistent, like a woodpecker at the back of my head, like, you need to, this is why you are here. This is why all of this crap, this is why the universe had to burn the whole thing to the ground and sweep it all away to start over, to heal, to learn, and to finally accept and step up into my purpose. And the DFW bathroom was the moment that said, time to make a change so that this book can happen. So I just changed jobs to do that, and now flying for a company here in the DC area. Smaller airplanes, home a little more, not all over the world as much. Don't have 13 time zones in 4 days.
Wow. Yeah.
That's kind of the thumbnail sketch there for you.
Wow, that you have a lot of thumbnail sketches. So
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to one of the early ones in the military as a woman. Now, when you graduated, you were one of how many women?
So in my class, I was one of 90 out of almost 1,000. There was 90 women on our class was just under 1,000. Wow. In the Air Force, a year or so later, when I graduated for pilot training, got my wings, there were about 200 women pilots in the Air Force out of about 20,000 pilots total back then. There are many
Wow.
more than that now.
Mhm.
I'm not even sure exactly what the numbers are, but there are several thousand women pilots now in the Air Force.
But a trailblazer and a trendsetter for sure. So
There was a core group of us that many of us are still connected, that
Oh,
were
that's
part of
great.
that generation, that changed the world and brought down the combat exclusion law that prohibited us from flying in combat.
That
So
must have been just an incredible time.
Mhm.
It was very, interesting, very different, a lot of challenges. There were, a lot of great guys along the way, but boy, there were a lot of assholes.
The world is full of them. So you just
Yes.
have to
And I'm
pick
sorry
and
for saying that on
choose.
your podcast.
No. So generally, how were you treated as a woman in the Air Force and wanting to be a combat pilot? How long did it take before you achieved that level of your dream?
We as women were not able to call ourselves combat pilots until after the law changed and the policy came down in April of 1993. So there were plenty of women who had actually flown in combat, and done some amazing heroic things, but were not legally and allowed to fly in combat. So could not be, there was no combat that could be attributed to them, despite wherever they had
What you did.
actually flown.
Right.
Was this amazing? I mean, it wasn't that long ago.
No, this is the 30th. This is the 30th anniversary this year. 2023 is the 30th anniversary of wait, that math doesn't work out. 1993. So anyways, whatever that math is, I think it is 30 years, but anyways. So I think you were asking, when did I what was first of all, how we were treated. It was a very it was hit and miss. Again, there were some phenomenal, there was an outstandingly amazing, wonderful colonel when I was a very young lieutenant and very young captain that pushed my records forward, that got me the job as the first woman to be a presidential advance agent for the White House.
Wow.
A colonel. So he was a crusty old guy, so to speak, but a phenomenal individual. And, he is forever one of my life heroes. There were, plenty of other guys there were plenty of guys that did not think women belonged flying airplanes at all, never mind in the military, and certainly not in combat. So there was the whole spectrum, which I don't think is anything really all that unlike what we women and human beings encounter today. For whatever reason, whether for whatever attribute or characteristic that somebody thinks you don't belong and they don't want you here, and they're going to make your life as horrible as hell as they can to prevent you from doing or achieving or being and becoming who you are and are meant to be. So there was some great experiences, and of course there were some absolutely horrible experiences.
So you had layers of conflict, layers of lack of acceptance, and layers of lack of support and so forth. Because number one, you're a woman wanting to be a combat pilot, then combat pilot, and then a gay woman at that, which was not allowed in the military at that time. Is that
no,
correct?
in fact, it was the time was a felony, and it was in terms of you were considered being gay, what we would now say LGBTQ, but being gay was right there with being a terrorist, anarchist, advocating the overthrow of the government, communist, all of those things. It was literally on the same filter, on the same chart and questionnaires and all of those things. So it was for us, those of us gay service members, that there was very much a what I refer to as a schizophrenic existence of having to really live my life in boxes. I had to and live these two extremely different personas, and constantly having to keep track of who and evaluate who was a potential threat. What had I said? What had I done? Make sure, you know,
Wow.
if I was at a social gathering with my personal friends, and if a camera came out, boy, you want to see people diving under sofas, you know, because we just could not take the chance of getting caught on camera because of witch hunts that would go on. And, you know, it was incredible layers of keeping track of these different facets of me and my personality and my home and who I knew and who I talked to, and constantly trying to read the tea leaves and the signs out there, and the various hidden messages and codes that gay service members had to try and figure out how to find each other, how to have, so you could be who you are. You could go be who you are and be comfortable and in your own skin and be safe and not end up, you know, in an interrogation room, getting read your rights and being interrogated for a felony. Because that's what I would, just because me, Eileen, because I existed, I was a felon for no other reason than because I existed. So, and even when Don't Ask, Don't Tell came along, it seems like that would have made asked, okay, well, I'll lie about this. Wasn't the case. It actually was just as bad, if not worse. More service members were discharged under Don't Ask, Don't Tell than before Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Oh,
Well, that's interesting.
okay. So I'm getting feeling as you're talking, there's always a looking over your shoulder, not knowing who to trust. I feel a roiling in my stomach, like always, you know, that extra.
How many years
acid.
did you live? How many years did you live like this?
24.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm asking you, you know,
Yeah.
I just, you have so many layers of conflict and overcoming that there's like I mentioned earlier, an indomitable spirit in you that I am sure you wanted to give up many times. The DNR days that you had and
Yeah.
so forth.
Or even
what-
just the fear that your life could just be over at any point.
Yes, but there's, you know, interestingly, and I think, again, this is true, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, that when you're living a life by a set of, I call it the law of shoulds. When you're living your life by the laws of shoulds, I should do this, I should do that, and put up and go along with, and you factor all that in, you end up living in a box where if I just stay in this box, I don't have to actually do this and be looking over my shoulder and all that, because I have confined myself and denied myself these other aspects and elements of me, and don't allow them to make connections. Don't allow, there are innumerable people that were in my life that I would love to have gotten closer to, and become life friends forever, but I couldn't do that because I couldn't take the risk. Because you couldn't ever be sure. Even those days when I was just sure I could trust this guy or that guy, I didn't. I always held back because I couldn't take the risk of having possibly misread and misinterpreted a trust signal as not being what I thought it was, and then game over. But so in doing so over time, the walls just come in, and particularly as you get higher in rank and there's more scrutiny on you and those kind of things, those walls of the box come in and you end up in living in this little Rubik's cube. So I didn't really walk around feeling like there was a gun to my head, so to speak, because I had so, frankly, deftly over time pushed these other things away and denied these massive pieces of myself so that I would live by the law of shoulds and put up with, go along, keep moving forward. Because there were a couple things. Why didn't I, get out and leave much sooner? Well, I had things I wanted to do. First of all, I wanted to fly airplanes.
Right.
Second of all, I really wanted the opportunity to make a difference in a group of people's lives. That meant I really wanted to be a commander.
Mhm.
I really wanted to have that experience. I really wanted to make a difference in a group of people's lives. And I ended up having that opportunity and did. It was an amazing experience. I could go on and rave about it today, but that opportunity, and I took a lot of risks during my command tour of opening up my home to have people, my squadron, come to my home. I'm sorry. I thought I had killed that. I'm so sorry. So I really thought that that I could risk certain things in certain ways in order to have the depth of connection as the commander of these people who would be potentially going off to war, and their families and their loved ones. So those were the kind of reasons. There were things I wanted to do. I did not want to just get out and leave. I wanted certain things that I wanted to achieve. But when it came down to the point at which it was, time to go, it was time to go. I was, that box had come in and come in and come in, and such that I was living in my heart and my soul were completely almost gone and lost.
Well, I can't even imagine, and thinking that a support group for a box that small had to be very minimal. Really, people you could trust that loved you and supported you was a very small group, I imagine.
Yes. In fact, there wasn't, by the time I got to the more senior ranks, near the end, there was literally only one or two people still that were in uniform that I could, or recently retired, that knew about me. My other trusted friends and support mechanism were friends from outside the military and other parts of my life. And they were so hardcore to protect me and take care of me that they dubbed me at one point. They dubbed me in emails. I was always referred to as TLC, the Lieutenant Colonel. So I never even used my name, just to make sure that if Big Brother was watching and reading emails, nobody would ever know. That's how hardcore everybody was about, protecting me.
So I have a question. So what does it feel like now that you can be you?
Yeah, that's it. It wasn't a light switch. It wasn't a suddenly I'm out and everything is hunky-dory fine. It is a continuing process to reintegrate, to first of all open up what I call my right brain, to open up this side of me. In the military we talk about mission and people, and that mission people balance. But even the people part is still very much mission oriented. So now, over several years, it has taken me to open up this side of me, my creative side, my right brain side, my emotion, my relationships, and having to learn and work at developing those and figuring out who is it that that are the people in my life that are part of me, that love me unconditionally, that I will work and invest in these relationships. A phrase, another one of Eileenisms, everybody laughs at all my Eileenisms, is those people who are going to be with me in rocking chairs on the front porch of heaven. That's how I look at it. So that has taken a time, and then to open that up and grow that. And now to integrate both of those sides of me, this very boxed, analytical, everything can be put on a spreadsheet, you know, coping side of me, very compartmentalizing. I am a problem solver, a fixer, a doer. That's what got highly developed for all those decades. The other stuff, not so much, because I couldn't, and all of that was put in boxes and set on shelves or in the basement, pick your metaphor, and have just now, particularly in the course of writing my memoir, has begun to come back out,
But I
and now
can
the integrating
Yeah,
those
and even
sides.
as you hand us your bio, you know, it's very well written and very full of descriptive terms and so forth. And so I can only imagine that this memoir is going to be full of tragedy and laughs and love and disappointment. And I mean, I could just feel this book
Right.
taking me on a journey that you know, it gives me the chills to even think about it. So I'm
Oh,
looking forward to it immensely. And I
yeah,
know
me too.
I'm sure. And I know our audience is going to want to follow that that journey of, as you come to finally get your book out into the marketplace. And so we're going to put your website, EileenI.com, so people can just jump right in there and follow you and keep track of your journey, and
Yeah.
and I
Oh, that,
imagine interact with you, and I'm sure there's contact forms and so forth on that website, so they can
thank you.
ask
Yep.
you questions and so forth. But I do have a question, because you have been through so much, and our audience tends to be women who have been through many transitions, disappointments, joys and sorrows.
Yep.
Many of them are moms and grandmas. And what if you had to give one bit of advice to women who are watching this, thinking, holy crap, that woman's been through a lot, and I identify with her. What bit of advice about resilience can you give to them?
It's I'll say it's a couple different dimensions that all come together. Number one is you're not crazy. When you have those feelings on those days, like I know that I must be the only one. Nobody could possibly, all of those, you know, and in the absence of support or affirmations, what do? We fill in the blank
Right.
ourselves.
Right.
So it's not you, you're not crazy. The next word then leads to um um yeah, I apologize about that. Full circle back to this Eileen's rule of one, just one foot in front of the other, metaphorically or physically. Just do one thing, and be okay with that each day. Just be in that mindset every day of I don't have to do everything. I don't have to conquer it all. I don't have to. I can just do today, just do one thing. And on the days that I feel like I'm doing 50 things, that's great. Then do the 50 things and be good with it. The other aspect is, you know, when we have these blanks that we fill in ourselves with the I'm not crazy, we've been take inventory, and ask myself, it's what I do anyways, of where is this coming from? Why is this thought or this feeling here? And look to it from the perspective of, I've had habits and patterns that have been programmed in over time and over the years. And this, again, this all connects to the, I'm not crazy and I can just do one thing today and be okay with it, because the decisions I've made, the things I've done, the steps I've taken to this point, when I'm feeling like I haven't got any of it right, I've done everything wrong, it's not that. I've actually done a marvelous job, a phenomenal, incredible, amazing job of taking care of myself, taking care of me, taking care of my heart, my soul, even when I feel like I've got no time for me or denying me. And just know that, that you're not crazy and you've done a phenomenal job taking care of yourself. And everything that has come before you has set you up to this point of asking these questions now of, is this all there is? Or what am I meant to do? Or my purpose? And instead of that feeling like lost or whatever, turn that around in my head to, I call it the Christmas morning feeling. Turn it around to one of, what, there's something happening here. All of this that's come before me, I'm not crazy. I've done a great job taking care of myself, and everything that has come before me has not left me sitting here on the side of the road with a duffel bag looking around at broken pieces and going, now what? Just the opposite. It has all been a confluence and a coming together of things that are setting me up now for this incredibleness that's about to happen and that's coming next. And if we can make that shift in our head, in our heart, in our soul, in our gut, from one of lost and loss and wondering and what the hell, and I haven't done this and I should that, whatever, to one of, no, baby, it has all happened and all coming together because of what's happening next that you have been prepared for. And it's okay to feel like that. You're not crazy. And now you can step forward like Christmas morning next.
I will say that message is going to resonate so much.
Absolutely. You're setting
That's the shift and the turn that I had to make.
And you're setting yourself up for the best life for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And so
Absolutely.
we're excited about that. Eileen, thank you so much for taking time and being with us today and sharing your story and being so vulnerable. We really, really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And we appreciate our audience for being here and really want you to take away the thought that you too are amazing and your best life is getting set up right now for the rest of your life. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you.